AI hallucinations are actually kind of similar to human error. And the reason that is because we as humans similarly are pattern recognizing machines, right? And so when you go to college and you learn some hard facts, and then you leave, and 3 years later, you're asked about what those facts are, you might not remember exactly what the facts were, right? But you have some kind of intuition of how things relate to each other, to the patterns, and you might output something with your words, kind of like a hallucination, which is based on kind of everything you know and the patterns and how things relate to each other. You have this idea of what the truth is.
So, welcome to AI for Thought exclusive All About AI series. And today we have Harper with us, who is an Instagram influencer on AI and machine learning. So, today we have a very interesting topic to talk about today, that is how serious are AI hallucinations and LLMs. And so, I think you all are going to enjoy that. So, we're going to start off with asking Harper that can you explain what AI hallucinations are in LLMs and how do they actually differ from human errors?
Yeah. So AI hallucinations are when the model outputs something that is not true. So it says something with confidence and it's just completely like made up and fabricated. And the reason that this happens is because AI models are trained to recognize patterns in text and then output new text according to those patterns. And so it's not actually referencing specific data itself. It's just learning patterns, like the way text relates to each other, and then it outputs new text according to those relations, or rather, those distributions, if you're actually looking at the way it works under the hood mathematically. And so it can make things up because it's just outputting words, right? So um, that happens with all AI models. And unless they are augmented with something like RAG, which we can talk about, there are some ways to help mitigate this. But at the core, large language models are these probability machines that generate new text based on the patterns of the text that it's received. So inherently, it can do this thing called hallucinate, where it just outputs text, but it's actually not truthful. It's
Yeah.
not based on fact. And so, it's interesting you say, how is it different than humans? Because I'm reading this book. It's called, oh my gosh, it's like, where is it? It's really interesting. I'll have to send it to you after, but
Sure.
it's by Henry Kissinger, and he is talking about how AI hallucinations are actually kind of similar to human error. And the reason that is because we as humans similarly are pattern recognizing machines, right? And so when you go to college and you learn some hard facts, and then you leave, and 3 years later, you're asked about what those facts are, you might not remember exactly what the facts were, right? But you have some kind of intuition of how things relate to each other, to the patterns, and you might output something with your words, kind of like a hallucination, which is based on kind of everything you know and the patterns and how things relate to each other. You have this idea of what the truth is. So it's actually interesting that you tie it to human error, because what Henry Kissinger argues is that it actually is very similar to human error. It's actually kind of inherent in us as humans as well. And so we, similar to models, like base models with not augmented with a database with the facts themselves, behave similarly to these large language models, and that we don't just like have a storage of facts. Maybe some people have, like photographic memory, right? And it's kind of like a storage, but we as humans also don't really do that. So it's a very, very great question.
Thank you. So what are the primary reasons for these AI hallucinations? Like a lot of people say that AI agents do not have these form of hallucinations as compared to these LLM models. So do you think that is the case? And what are actually the reasons of all of these hallucinations?
Yeah, so I'm assuming when you say AI agents don't have that, I guess that's because the agents that we typically see are these large language models. So the base models that output text according to
Yeah.
distributions, according to patterns, but augmented with the ability to do other things like search the web, like look at a database. So those agents that are the LLMs with these added abilities can then search the web or look at a database and cross-check its knowledge or what it's saying with the web. And it's also might be looking up specific facts on the web and just grabbing things from there. So again, it has this access to this database that, or outside facts, external facts that the large language models do not.
That's true.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of like if we humans like could cross-check, like, I think that's the case, but let me just
yeah,
quickly Google it to confirm.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
So do you think that the rise of AI hallucinations can cause misinformation in the future?
Yes. That's why I actually am really trying to spread the word about hallucinations. So I'm glad we're doing this, podcast because I actually just made a video about this where a Stanford professor was is facing potential perjury charges because
Wow.
was he was making a write-up against the bill that was being passed. It was in, I forget what state it was in. Is it New Hampshire? But anyway, it was at they were legally discussing whether they should ban political deepfakes. So deepfakes are these
Okay,
videos that
yeah.
are created of people or things that aren't real, right? But they look real, but they're AI generated. So they were talking about whether they should ban political deepfakes, so about political figures. And this professor wrote up a statement or an essay about why he was in support of this ban. And he had, I think, 15 sources, and two of them weren't real. And the reason was because he used ChatGPT, and I think ChatGPT hallucinated, and so it made up sources. And that's a very common thing, is that if you use a base model that doesn't explicitly have the ability to like find specific research papers, it might hallucinate papers. That's very common. And so that is an issue, obviously, for him. And then as people go online and start using these large language models and then write up, research papers or, blog posts or whatever, making content out of these false outputs of the model, then our internet will start to get flooded with misinformation, right? And then the models are then trained on misinformation. And so it becomes this compounding issue. So, yes, I think it's a significant issue, but I also think that it's being actively mitigated right now. So there are a lot of solutions that are coming out right now to help prevent hallucinations. So I don't think it will be an issue for long.
Right. So there are a lot of people who do not have knowledge about AI and hallucinations, like, you're talking about blog posts and content creators. So how could they identify all of these hallucinations for someone who's, new to AI?
Yeah, I recommend using a model that is augmented with the ability to search the web. So for example, Perplexity, I think ChatGPT also, if you pay for it, has this ability. There are some, if you're doing research, you should maybe use like I think it's SCITE. That checks research papers, and basically it'll find the sources for you. So it'll output the facts. It will give you a source for that fact, and then you should go in and manually check that one, the source is trustworthy, and two, that the fact it's giving you is actually represented in the source. Because sometimes the models still will say, like, this is the source, this is the fact, this is the source. But then if you actually look at the source, that fact is not actually in there. It's like misrepresented. The model got confused. So definitely we need humans to verify this still. So definitely just make sure you have sources and check the sources.
So do you think hallucinations differ in different LLM models, or all the same? Like, we have different vision-based AI, then we have voice-based AI. So do they also have different forms of hallucinations, or are they all the same in all LLMs?
It's an interesting question. Well, voice hallucination would I guess the voice would also be mixed with text. So maybe the
Yeah.
hallucination would be like it would still kind of be the equivalent of text, because I think the text is generated first before the voice. So I think voice models over text would probably be the same. And then video, yeah, it could hallucinate. Like sometimes, it'll generate a video that is not what you think it is. And whether or not that's a hallucination or that is, you know, the model just like struggling to output something that is coherent, we're still, I don't think we know for certain.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, that's an interesting question. But basically, it's all what hallucinations are is this pattern recognition that then goes wrong, where it's like making things up. But I guess in the case of like video, like what is making things up when you're generating video, right? Like what is fact in video? Um, in the case of like video creation, right? Because you're not like trying to spit out something that is exactly true.
I guess like hallucinations can be in videos like, we've all seen in AI videos that instead of having 5 fingers, a person has 6 fingers. So I guess that is also a part of hallucination.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But I also struggle if what to say for hallucination for that is that hallucination or is that just the model isn't good enough, right? Because
Yeah.
hallucination would be when like hallucination, I think, is based on like fact, but then recognizing patterns. And
Yeah.
so I guess, fact would be five fingers, but I don't necessarily think maybe it's a hallucination. I don't know. That's a very interesting question. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the model isn't good enough or if that's a hallucination. I'm leaning towards that the model just isn't good enough yet. Um, because you would think that the pattern in the video wouldn't be 6 fingers, it would be 5 fingers,
Yeah.
right? So that's an interesting question.
Right. So, what change do you think that LLM models should have in order to minimize these hallucinations? And if there is any way, or do you think that hallucinations will always be a part of AI?
So you can augment the models using, agent, like you can allow them to search the web, like we said. There's also something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is also added onto the large language model itself. You give it an external database, and then you basically allow it to query the database. So based on your prompt, it it turns that prompt into numbers, searches the database that is also a bunch of text but turned into numbers, sees which text in the database is most similar to the text that you gave it, and then says like, "Oh, is this information based on the similarity? Is the information in the database that is most similar to the prompt, is that relevant? Like, is that basically if you ask like, who is the president of the United States in 2020, you would be able to say like, oh, it would search this database, find President United States 2020 Joe Biden, and then it would be able to then say like, oh, is this relevant? And then pull that actual factual data, right? It's referencing specific facts. So that is retrieval augmented generation. And then you also can have the model. There are ways to do it just with the model itself, so not have any external thing. So you can ask it to do like chain of thought reasoning, which is when you tell the model to um, output its reasoning steps. So like think step by step and tell me how you came to your conclusion. And so you have it actually break things down, and that kind of chain of thought reasoning really helps the model because, right, you're feeding the steps back into the model because it's models are just token
Yeah.
generators. They generate one at a time based on everything before it. And so as you're giving this chain of thought, it's reinforcing what did I just do? What was I just thinking? And it helps it get to the right place. And then you can also tell it like if you are uncertain, tell me that you're uncertain. Do not just like make things up. Like if you're not certain, tell me. And that could I've read that helps a bit. But yeah, those are the methods that you can use if you don't have access to these external databases or you don't have an agentic system. But again, you need to be really careful and like
Yeah.
cross-check. If you need it to be factual, you should really be cross-checking.
So, have you ever encountered an AI hallucination that was very convincing to you? And if yes, then how did you actually deal with it or, verify it?
Hmm, it's interesting. Did I ever encounter one that was very convincing to me? Uh, well, that's interesting. So recently I've been reading the Bible, okay? And I've been very curious. I've been studying the Bible. And in my life, I've had certain experiences, and I've been talking to this model about certain experiences in my life and referencing like the Bible, because kind of patterns and lessons and things like that. And it will kind of say, sometimes it will hallucinate. So it'll be like, just like, this thing that happened in the Bible, your experience is this, and the lesson is this. And I say, like, oh, I have some background on the Bible. I went to Catholic school growing up. I didn't believe in God for a long time when I was growing up, but I did learn a lot of the stories. And I would be like, well, what is that story? Like, I don't know about that. Like, when did that happen? And then it would say, oh, I'm sorry. Like, that's actually not true. I'm sorry that I said that. I was just trying to tie your experience with something, but I actually just made something up that wasn't real. And so that kind of thing was very interesting to me. Um, so yeah, I think the way to verify it is because I had some kind of inkling that it wasn't true. Same with like lesson planning. Sometimes I'll flesh out a lesson plan, I'll ask it to augment things, like add, topics that I haven't added or expand, and having some knowledge of what it's talking about helps you pick out those hallucinations. So if you are new to a topic, it's smart to cross-check. So,
All right. So there's an ongoing debate that is going on, that AI is going to be taking over jobs. So do you think that one reason why AI can never take over jobs is because of all of this hallucination which is happening, and you'll always require human to verify information?
hmm. Well, I don't think AI is going to take over jobs because I think that it's going to help us. Like, it'll take some jobs, but it won't take full jobs, maybe some full jobs. But I see more heavily that AI will help us do our jobs better. Like, it will enable us to move more quickly, take away the tedious tasks, and help us like do more of the kinds of tasks that we like. So, for example, I have a friend who is a photographer, and she's telling me now, I used to have to edit, like if there were something in the background that I didn't like a poll or something, I would have to edit it for 4 hours just to get it out. And now I can just click it and it's gone. Right. And so that's 4 hours back that she can be have a photo shoot with another client, build something else, build her website, expand her clientele. Like, those are 4 hours that she can grow her business and not just be like editing a poll out of the background. And so it's that kind of thing that gets me really excited about AI. It's these tools that are going to help us actually work in areas that we enjoy more and expand more and grow quicker. It's like this amazing superpower tool. It's like having another, person with you. But we all have that. And so we're all growing. It's not like just taking someone's job. It's like expansive, right? It's multiplicative. And so, yeah. And so, I mean, for now, yes, you with hallucinations, you're right. We need a human to go in and check. And I think, I'm not sure, but I could see for a long time that we need like human oversight of these AI models for sure. Especially at least to some degree, we will always need it, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, for now, we still definitely need humans, but it helps them with their research. It helps them, it helps you, like I was saying, move so much faster than you were moving before. We still need the human to go in and check, but like suddenly you have hours of research in a second. And then, there's another AI tool that you can use to generate the slideshow that you have to make, the slide deck that you have to make. And then you have more time to practice or to, do more research or to, work on something else, work on your personal brand. So yeah, that's my view on the jobs thing.
Right. So since you have a lot of knowledge about AI and machine learning, what change do you think LLMs do require and they do not have currently, which can actually reduce these AI hallucinations, apart from cross-checking and all?
What was the what do they need? You dropped out for a second.
Yeah, I was saying, what type of change do you think that LLMs should have in order to reduce these hallucinations?
I think LLMs should be ultimately all able to search the web, right? The
Okay.
problem is that it's much more compute intensive to search
Yeah.
the web and then scan sites there. Like that's so much more compute intensive, which is why those models, you have to pay for those models. There aren't like free versions of those models. And, things like RAG can help, where you have this database that you're referencing, things like that. I mean, those are the solutions that are existing now. Those are the ones that I can think of. Perhaps there's some research genius who's thinking of new and innovative ways to fix this problem, but those are the ones that I think should be implemented across all models. And if not, it should be very clear to the user that hallucinations are possible. Like if you're using a model that doesn't have those capabilities, then it should be very clear as you're chatting with it, like models hallucinate. It could be making up information. Definitely check your sources. And some models already have that.
Right. So what's your opinion on businesses having, completely relying on AI agents? Because, there's a lot of hype of AI agents currently, and a lot of companies are moving entirely towards an agentic, workflow where they do not require any humans. So do you think that is right when it comes specifically to AI hallucinations? Do you think it's the right time to do all of this?
That's interesting. A lot of companies are using agents for customer service,
Yeah.
and I think it's great. I mean, customers have reported a lot higher, much higher satisfaction rate, like significantly higher. And so if you are able to satisfy your customers, you're able to grow your businesses. Um, I think that's a win. And so yeah, having customers who are able to get the help that they need immediately and to also access one of the cool things about agents, right, is that you can access users' individual accounts. So you can look at like what they've been doing, their own personal history, their own projects, and you can give them tailored responses based on their own use case. And so I think that that is really amazing. And so yeah, I think if you can implement agents, that's great. And yeah, I don't know about the whole like entirely replacing all customer service because I think there will be cases, right, where the agent doesn't do it, in which case then you can pass it on to the human. But what I see then happening is that as customers are more and more satisfied, they tell their friends, the business grows. And so then you have more and more agents constantly helping people, but you may still have the same number of like actual humans there, but you're serving way more people than you were serving before, and everyone is happy.
That's
So
true.
that's, yeah.
So, like at the end of the interview, would you like to give any message to all the viewers about AI hallucinations? What do you think is the future of AI hallucinations and how they should be saved from it?
Ah. Well, I think it's just important to spread the word about hallucinations. It's really important that people know about them. But it's also something, not something to like fear, it's just know that they exist and know that you need to cross-check your sources and use models to rapidly gather massive amounts of data to get you on the right track. And then just cross-check it. It's still saving you hours and hours of research, but just make sure that it's correct and just know what you're doing and don't just like blindly use a model without checking. And I think AI is so exciting, so amazing. And so I'm excited for it's really not something to be afraid of. It's just be aware of it. And it's just a tool. We still need human brains
Yeah.
involved.
Okay. Thank you so much, Harper, for being with us today. It was wonderful having you. Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. This episode is part of a special short series I'm recording. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're enjoying these episodes and want to see more, let me know.